Are you finding any commonalities that almost like standards across all countries? Like you mentioned social distancing, but are there any sort of things that you can say, well, look, pretty much all markets that we operate in, these are things that are going to shape what the, in your business is likely to look at, from the free weights to the cardio to the strength and managing the sort of guests as they come in and out the business? Is there any things that just, what you think are going to be common across everywhere?
Yeah, although some states are on one end of the spectrum where they're like, okay, open up, do your best, and some states are literally very rigid, and there's everything in between. But I think what we're seeing, definitely the consistent pieces is, shutting down cardio or spacing it out so you've got at least 6 feet in between, both next to each other and alternating across. Moving strength equipment, definitely physically distancing that. I think the PPE for the staff at a bare minimum, we're seeing very consistent, at least the mask and the gloves. Also consistent, we're definitely seeing capacity guidelines right now. Here in the great state of Texas, we're going to open up at 25% capacity. I think, and similar, I think Georgia was very similar for a while. Some states opened at 50% and some opened with none, but there's some sort of capacity, at least in most states. So we're seeing that piece of it. And we are seeing them limiting things, like most states are limiting things like, full-on locker room use other than the toilets, right? And some of the things like Kids Club phase 1 that's pretty consistent, where, hey, let's hold off on that. Let's make sure we get this right, get everyone comfortable and safe, and then move that to phase 2.
How are you? Like, cardio and strength seems to be very easy to manage, in terms of controlling what people do and preventing them from sort of breaking those guidelines. But how are you finding it in areas like the free weights area, which are generally always one of the busier areas in the facility, where there's not the ability to kind of manage how people go in and out of dumbbells, or the functional training areas where you've got a lot of people moving around? Are you keeping those open, or have you got some ways to control that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, and it was a challenge as we were getting ready for this. And yeah, you're right, cardio straightforward. What we did is we moved all the benches in the strength areas around, and we put the floor clings that we designed next to them, so people could see, okay, this bench is here by this floor cling. We did that also in the multifunctional areas, or the turf areas, or wherever we had people just with stretching areas. So we had those floor clings around as well. We're also greeting people as we come in and giving them a quick insight, their first time back in the gym, so they can kind of understand what these things mean. We even had our members in our company-owned gyms, we created a new code of conduct amendment where they sign digitally before they come in, or when they walk in, they can scan the QR code, and just to agree to that code of conduct, and to make sure they abide by it. So some of those areas are a little bit difficult, but we also have people walking around the floor. They're walking around, they've got the little spray bottle on their hip, and they got the paper towels, and they're walking around cleaning and chatting and talking to people. And we've had to train them. We've had to train them on conversations we never thought they'd have to have, like, hey, Matthew, good to see you, looking good after a couple of months. By the way, you're standing too close to her. Like, those are things we got to be careful of, and we've been trying to teach them. So they're walking around and helping, and I think members get it. I was in our Oklahoma City gyms last week, our opening day, talking to members, myself, hanging out, and they got it. Mask on, working out, clean up after myself, stay apart, do my best, and I think it was been grilled into them everywhere else.
Are you getting the members then wearing masks as well?
Yeah, so what we're doing is at Gold's Gym company-owned stores, we're adhering to local guidelines. So if they say members must wear them, then we make sure they are. We coined the phrase, not coined the phrase, but we like to say, bring BYOM, bring your own mask. We strongly recommend they BYOM to our clubs. And I would say a good portion of our members, when I was in the clubs last week, had the mask on. So, we certainly follow the local guidelines, but I think most people feel comfortable. And eventually, that'll be up to them what they continue. But our team members are certainly in masks and gloves right now.
Do you think that there'll be sort of more of a situation where the responsibility is on the client, the user, to take their own precautions, as opposed to that necessarily, being the club's responsibility to manage if they're too close to each other? Like, I go into supermarkets, for example, and they kind of, have signs up and say, look, keep distance, but they're not policing it or anything like that. Would you say the same thing will happen in the gyms? It's like, look, use some common sense and just don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and you've been in this industry a long time. the fitness industry is the ultimate sense of community, especially in the clubs, right? You build your own community, you look after each other. And I think people will do that. They will help. I hate to say self-police, but, self-patrol and look around and they see something going on. Usually people are the first to speak up, but I also think they're respectful. Thankfully, generally, most people are respectful and understand we're in unprecedented times. And I know it might be a little hard to do a bench press with a mask, but if you have a mask and you're safe and you're feeling good, you'll be back and you'll stay healthy. And so I think we will continue to make sure that we are cleaning up after members, making sure they're doing it themselves as well, a little bit of both. And I think we'll find a happy medium at some point, but it's still pretty early days.
Yeah, that's right. What are you doing about things like dumbbells and bars, where I suppose you've got people, putting them down, picking them up? Are you getting them to wipe that stuff down themselves as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We are asking them to wipe it down themselves, but we also have somebody in the strength area pretty much at all times in our company-owned gym, so they're keeping an eye out. They're helping, and it was great. I did witness a lot of people grab the paper towels or grab the the cleaning wipes that are already there, and they pull it out of the bucket, and they were wiping the dumbbells down and the barbell and of course the benches and things like that. And they were all over it, right? Some states like Texas is actually requiring full fingered gloves when we reopen on Monday. So obviously we'll still clean, of course, but they want people to wear gloves and then wipe them down afterwards just to help, with the sanitization piece.
And what about like areas where you've got, like, I know Group X in a lot of cases are not open, but what do you see happening in spaces like that? Will it be a case of where you have to bring your own mask? Can you see people bringing their own boxing gloves and yoga mats and that sort of thing to classes more, as opposed to having communal ones?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the unfortunate normal for a while. I mean, even though they're not open, we're already looking at the floor clings and starting to install them in our group exercise rooms and our studios and figuring out what that 25 or 50% capacity max is going to look like and making sure we monitor it correctly. I think we are going to be in that unfortunate normal where if it's a yoga class, it's going to bring your own mat. If it's a boxing or kickboxing, bring your own gloves. I think we're going to need to do that for a little while. And I kind of think people will, I feel they would understand it. As a consumer, they probably feel safer. I got my own yoga mat. I know that I clean it. I know it goes back in my trunk in the car and off I go.
I've seen some pictures going around the internet of, I think they're from Asia actually, where they've got these screens in cardio areas. I suppose in some ways it allows you to get more people in there. What are your thoughts on things like that as an operator?
I mean, I've seen those pictures as well, and we in our front desk, and we got the shipments in for the next round today. I saw some pictures. We are installing the plexiglass that protects people and has a little hole you can slide through. And the sneeze guard type things, and that's about as far as we're going there. I understand that those may help protect, but I also feel just personally those are also add to the cleaning nightmare. What could be a nightmare to spray them and clean them, and they could become carriers themselves. And I just think it's one extra surface that could potentially contain the germ, although maybe saving someone in between. But they could also contain germs themselves. It's just the cleaning, man. Those things, it's like cleaning a glass table, right? You never get them clean. So I think we're not going to go that route. I'd rather shut the cardio machines down, making sure we're cleaning and spraying with the medical grade cleaning supplies, and just go that route, in my opinion.
I know a lot of models nowadays, as the sort of industry's evolved, there's a very fine line between your rent costs and your staff costs and and the number of members that you need inside a facility, and I guess with the pressure from a lot of the low cost businesses, that's probably even more sort of sensitive now. How do you think if this continues beyond a few months, how do you think the business models will need to evolve to make that work with your 25% or your 50% within the facility at one time? Do you see maybe prices having to go up to make the models work if you can't get the amount of people you used to have in?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, right? That's going to be a tough one. We've modeled it a couple different ways, and we're still looking at it. We've modeled some pretty dreary assumptions in terms of member loss, and we've tried to kind of see what that could look if it was a little better and be a little less conservative in that regards. But we were pretty conservative and just modeled a lot of member loss. But at the same time, for us, we may have anywhere from 20 to 30 people working at a gym, and we're going to have 8 right now between housekeeping, front desk, and managers, right? So we are dropping our operating expenses accordingly during this time. We're going to see how that balances out. I think we were pleasantly surprised that our post-open attrition in terms of member count loss was nowhere near as high as we thought, but also, billing hadn't started yet, so we'll see how that goes. But I feel cautiously optimistic that we will not have the attrition we thought from a total member count. But we're going to be looking at it, running the models pretty much weekly, seeing what it looks like, looking at our operating expenses. And yes, staff operating expenses will be lower to begin with, but cleaning expenses and supplies will be higher. So it probably won't offset, but it's still going to be there. So we're looking at all these things, and we're going to have to play it almost week by week and make decisions and be nimble.